Hey guys, what's up? What's going on? So we are on Thursday market breakdown. The markets are looking really good. The other little bit I wanted to mention just before I jump into things was I won't be making any content until Tuesday, Wednesday next week, most probably Tuesday, but just depending on how the adjustment is of coming back, we'll see. I'm going to be going to a wedding in Lithuania, so obviously I will be away. I won't have access to my full setup, so for that reason, in terms of rendering and stuff, I just won't have the availability to do it. If I could take my whole computer with me, I absolutely would make more content. Love it, enjoy it. Also, I kind of love the feedback, it kind of helps me improve, as well as other people who are learning. It's pretty cool. So yeah, let's just jump straight into it without wasting any more time. Looking at the DXY, so the DXY on the hourly, we can see that, probably better to start with the 4 hour. We can see that we are still in this area where we have created this consolidation. There's more than enough room to run. This doesn't have to form that at this point. We kind of have this where this is kind of just running into a running channel, and this can kind of just push away now. It is what it is, at the end of the day, sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. In this case, it just seems like this may potentially be the pattern. I will still leave these lines on though, for just in case we do just suddenly gravitate to the low and then reject. Hey, why not? But more than likely we might push up, create some continuation and carry on going. So it is looking good for the DXY and the related pairs, especially when we jump into Euro USD. We can see how that is formulated. So this is looking pretty good to kind of just continue in the run to the upside with the momentum that we've got, but we'll have to wait and see. At the moment, we do have two tops, two bottoms to this larger section over here. Will we get a third touch? Only time can tell. But at the moment, we will still be waiting to see if the DXY can make its way up here in line with the higher time frame, where we have this massive push down, this larger correction here, and then continuation to the downside. So that's essentially what I am going to be waiting for, and we'll have to wait and see. The JP225 now positioned on the weekly, very, very nice. There was this head and shoulders which was drawn on. I'm not too sure if I put it in yesterday's content, but it looks like the commitment is falling through. And with this could be the beginning of something absolutely beautiful for the yen related pairs. So now that we're seeing this commitment across the board, we will be strategically looking for continuation. My biggest sort of point out, I don't really want to give advice, but my biggest sort of direction in terms of these volatile markets and when markets start to move aggressively is just be patient and wait for something that's in line with your plan. If you FOMO and just jump into a trade here, it's more than likely that there's a possibility that this could correct, come up, create something like this, and then drop off. And then all you're doing is just positioning yourself incorrectly. Your stop is there, this kind of corrects, hits your stop and comes back, and then you're wondering, what did I do wrong? So sometimes even if this drops off down here and this creates something like that, you still may be in for the run in this position over here, or whatever pattern you might see. Understanding your strategy, what you're familiar with, and how you can take advantage of it is what's the most important. So coming off that, we do have this head and shoulders, which I will be looking at it to play pretty much to these inflection points, but more likely around about here. And then I just want to evaluate at that point. We might be trading below, well, we will be trading below this ray line, where I can then look to position myself strategically to the downside. So that is basically what I'm going to be looking at on these JP225 pairs, but more than likely I'll be looking at the related pairs and seeing how I can position myself on those. As you can see, this week I don't have many. I only have CAD yen and New Zealand yen. Still look pretty good, but next week most probably I will be having those yen pairs on because it looks like the movement's coming in. Aussie US dollar. Didn't quite get the entry on this one, unfortunately, at this point, but we might still shape up for it. So what I was waiting for was, we had this correction push down, we had the mini correction over here. Didn't quite give me the best of structure, but then we pushed down and we started to correctively squeeze back higher. I was looking for it to come back into that area to then look at a sell from there. We did sell off a bit early. Hey, it is what it is. Sometimes they go, sometimes they don't. At this point in time, I'm not really too inclined to take any trades around about here. I will wait to see if we do gravitate and come back up here. That would be very interesting, but more than likely it looks like we might just continue selling off, and we'll have to look for a different type of correction on the way down. So this one I think is definitely worth waiting and looking at, but we still have, this section. If we do come up to that section up here again, then that's where I'll position myself. But for now, I'll leave it out. New Zealand yen, honestly, New Zealand yen. So we got that push above, which is more than likely sometimes. We had that 1, 2, 3. We had the sort of ascending into it. We didn't quite complete. We pushed above. We didn't quite commit, and we started to push down. Even though this is a little bit corrective, I'm quite happy with this price action because we are getting commitment to the downside now, and it's in line with the JP225, and I'm seeing the similar sort of price action across the board with other yen pairs. The only negative factor is that on some of the other yen pairs, it does look like there could be some more build move into it, and it does make me think, could this just kind of develop into something larger? Possibly, but at this point, don't really need to worry, because if we can get a trade in here where this just corrects and does its thing, and then we can get a trade into that low, then obviously then this can create something larger, and then we can understand that. But more than likely, there'll be more than enough room to manage that, even with a risk entry around about here, which I think would be appropriate. If we took it around about 13, you could even squeeze in around about 10-15 pips, 10-15 percent position. So that's basically what I'm looking at. I wouldn't worry too much about left at the moment. I would now be focusing on the downside, because we are giving good indications of the sell, at least to the 90% of this. So I would stay sharp and definitely read between it. I guess there was maybe some entries in here, but just nothing that kind of jumped out to me and was like, hey, listen, this is something worth putting £1 million risk on. I couldn't see £1 million risk trade there. So for that reason, there was no trade at this point in time. But we'll wait and see if something shapes up and it's in our time zone, or if it's worth waiting for. We'll wait and see for that. The next one is Euro GBP. Euro GBP is actually quite a nice one as well, to be honest. I mean, we didn't get the commitment from the low that we were looking for just yet. We did push off a bit early. Hey, sometimes these things happen. We just have to take a message from the market. Now we're getting that strong impulse. We'll wait and see if we get a continuation to the upside. I like this a lot. I really do like this a lot, because then this kind of gives me still that that bear flag sort of momentum sort of feel to it. It's still very much valid. It's very much nice. I'll have to wait for the first flag though. That's the most important thing for me at this point in time. So I will be waiting now that we've cleared all of that price. I'll be waiting to see if we get something like this, which could take a few hours to develop. And then given the time of day we're in now, it will probably come into high spread hours, so I'm maybe not inclined to take that trade, but we'll wait and see. If something shapes up before, we can probably take advantage of it. We're roughly running around about 4 o'clock now, so really and truly, I don't think there'll be any trade there on the table for me today. It'll be a tomorrow trade, but we'll wait and see for it. The next one is EuroCAD. I think EuroCAD is absolutely stunning. So we do have that little mini override here, but I'm not too inclined about it. I'm looking to see if we can push up to get to this little hook point. There is a little bit of a push above it, which we can understand. Not concerned about this. If we do start aggressively pushing in this sort of momentum, then yeah, okay, I'll understand that we could make it to these points. But more than likely, if we come up with momentum and we just push, I'll be looking for that push down and something like that. If we do come up and then we start to just from here just correctively just squeeze and then maybe just get a push up, even still corrective, whatever, then we can evaluate for a phase line or something. But more than likely, I would be very much inclined to see if we get something like that. That I can definitely look to risk entry. And yeah, we'll see. But I mean, overall, this move has been very choppy, so perhaps maybe it might even continue with its choppy movement. Who knows? And then you might see something like that. We'll have to wait and see. But I think at this point, we're probably going to get that very impulsive move and then come down, and this will be the go-to trade. So we'll have to wait and see for that one. But this is definitely looking stunning, and it will be a move from here to this low, which I'll zoom out for you quickly and have a little look. So yeah, we'll wait and see. But sometimes, these things don't play out. And if it does start pushing up and starts going bullish, hey, it is what it is. We just got to accept that that's what's happening in the market, and something deep is developing. Maybe we might sell off from this point. But those are the things that you have to learn from and move forward on. The next one is I'm looking at GBP New Zealand for a potential long. The reason I'm looking for the long is I want to see if we can actually create this final ascending channel into this little point over here. Is it possible? We can still sell off though. We don't need to go there. But I think looking at how price is moving is possible. So I was drilling into the 1 hour to see if we can get some sort of 1 hour flag over here to get in. There was a little bit of a misentry, but it was a bit of higher risk, so I wasn't inclined for it. It was this little squeeze over here when we had the push away, and then the bottom wasn't fully confirmed at that point, but we could understand the structure that could have been forming. And then basically we had the push away, and then you could say there was 2 entries. There was the first, well, yeah, I mean, it's really contemplatable, but I think that one I would have probably been more inclined for a reduced risk, and then you would be running something about 4% probably, give or take. So yeah, it just says in there, yeah, maybe about 2 odd %. So hey, that's the trade there. But if this shapes up, there could be a trade in here as well, which I think could come in before we go into late session today. So you could stay sharp for something like that, but I would be more inclined to wait for a 1 hour flag than a 15, just personal preference. CAD Yen, so CAD Yen is actually developed pretty well, especially we're seeing the shorts across the board. This could be a pretty good short. Honestly, this could shape up and actually move pretty nicely. The only negative confluence is that we haven't really tapped into this override yet, even though we're coming in with the arcing nature, and we're coming into like this kind of low. But I'll be very honest with you, many times price can come this far, create something deeper, come all the way down here, and then start gravitating back up. So it might just be a part of the plan to maybe even create something a little bit more complex before we get there. You know, even if it does something like this and sells off and then comes back up and then sells off again and then comes back up, would you really be surprised then when you see something like that? Not really. So it's not really your most typical sort of price that you see, but have to understand that that is also possible. But I think CAD Yen's one that I was happy to kind of stay away from, just because if this price action was happening from above the high and we broke back below 110%, I'll be looking for that short. But because we haven't really made it there yet, I'm not too convinced with it, and also the weekly is not really something that jumps out to me. I want a higher time frame to be king at the moment. I'm not seeing that, especially with New Zealand yen. We're seeing it. Look how the weekly is going to close. That is looking really good. All we need to do now is look for a way to position ourselves. It's very much possible any sort of hour now we might see that positioning, and then we might be able to get involved for a flag, and then most probably we might hold it over the weekend. But if we can sorry, not hold it over the weekend. Well, yeah, it's very much possible the trade might still be running, but we might be able to hold it in today through tomorrow, and then maybe even be out or holding it. So that's one to keep aware of. New Zealand CAD. So the only trade I saw was the one here, and that would be running for a very decent profit. Reduced risk, probably slaps in for around about here. And yeah, I would probably management wise already be out the market, just because I'd be running about 7.6. I'd get more aggressive as we're approaching this high. You got 11% to the high, and then over here you're running about 7.6. It went around about 9 something. So I think, yeah, probably around about this point here, probably would have got a bit more aggressive around about 7.5. Probably, yeah, mentally I would have probably gone 7.5 and then just had it there, and then I would have been out the market roughly around about here. This probably still will create that sort of just a bit of a correction and move up, but it's probably the bang trade there. So, you know, that's decent, and I saw that fully from point one. I just couldn't look for another opportunity as we moved, and then as we were deeper I was like, room for larger flag, not really too interested in that. Aussie New Zealand, it's just one of them ones. It just didn't come back for me. I thought maybe it would have come back for me and then we would have sold with it, but at this point in time, not yet. Maybe next week we might see it starting to move, and then it might get something a bit more messier. But yeah, this one I think is absolutely sick. Okay, cool. So we had the low here, we broke it, we pushed back up, created this larger flag. Now the larger flag, obviously this could have been in line with, you know, something like this, and you know, it was just like, okay, fine, if that happens. But it makes a lot of sense when you zoom in now. So we've pushed back up, we've created this sort of correction. You know, we can see that we're not moving in the most progressive way to the downside, and we had it. So we pushed in with a 1, 2, 3 into here, pushed up correctively, squeezed on the hourly, creating this very tight, nice flag, and then we pushed up, and that's running for about 11 odd percent. Management wise, it'd be a difficult one to manage because of how impulsive it is, but you'd probably be holding that break even, and then when you break above this and you kind of cleared it around about here, then at that point there you could have easily said, yeah, I'll lock in around about 3%. You'd be running about 6, so yeah, 3% could have been appropriate. And then now that it's running up here, you could probably just be a little bit more aggressive and say, yeah, okay, cool, I'll hold in 6. And then when that moves even further, because I think right now it's running around about 10, so maybe at that point you could say 8. I think 8% is probably a good amount that for you to just be like super aggressive and be like, okay, cool. If this rejects from one of these areas and starts coming down, it is what it is. But more than likely, this could turn into a tremendously good trade, right? If we look at it on the 4-hour, and if this starts to make its way, it could take a long time, but this has the potential to run to about 50 odd percent per trade. So honestly, it's a banging trade, absolutely banging, but there'll be more opportunity like that. You know, imagine you see this trade here and then you get the next flag and you get, you know, 10 pip stop loss on it. Okay, cool. And then that one has the potential to run to 40%, and then you get another trade that has the potential to run 40%. Next thing you know, when it does potentially reach the high, because obviously it can reverse and come back down, so it's not always for certain, but if it does, then you know you've made it 80% position when originally you thought you missed out on a 50 odd percent position. So that's a good way to kind of just look at it. Here we have, so in line with the DXY, as we saw with the DXY, how it was in that formulating of that structure, and we thought we missed it. The Euro USD hasn't actually moved as aggressively as the DXY, but we're still in that formulated 1, 2, 3 where we could potentially get that push away now and then get that flag. So that's basically what I'm going to be looking for quite carefully to see what sort of rejection, but I'm not so excited about this price action, I'll be honest with you. It's just not really something that kind of wows me. I'm going to personally, in my opinion, take a flag over here in this section here if there's one, and then if we are back in that section there, definitely I'll be looking for that short position. But that's about it. And the best of the best, which kind of goes a little bit missed for me, I don't think it's the best of the best, but USD 100, US 100. So we have this override section here which basically meets with this high, and then we basically came into it again. I think I was looking a little bit for too much, but basically as we came in, we didn't quite hit it exactly, and we did create a 4-hour pin bar on that high, but we didn't pierce it. As you can see, if I zoom in ever so closely, there was a small gap, but it's irrelevant because it's just a matter of small amount of pips. You know, you're calling it like, yeah, off roughly about spread 2 pips. We had a strong push down, but it was quite corrective, which kind of put me a bit off. And then we pushed down, had a 1-hour flag, and then you had the 1-hour pin bar again after a decent amount of candles, and then we sold off. Could have been, it's a 5.22% position. I don't really know if it's a missed position or not for me, because I watched it and I decided in the time I don't want to take it. Reason why is we didn't really break the high, and I am looking for the trade to kind of at least pierce it and push a little bit above and then come back down. There wasn't any clear sort of price action at that point, because if I pull it back and you were looking at it like this, you know, you would then think, okay, well, there's a few variations. We haven't really tapped into that override. If that's the structure, we have something like this, where this can easily push into that and then just reject and come all the way back up, gets a bit messy, becomes an expanding, and then potentially sells off. A few variations. There wasn't really much for me to go off by, but then when I look at it now, it does feel like a mistrade. I've accepted it, I've moved on, it is what it is, but like I said, it looks pretty good. You know, now you look at it like this and you're seeing it, you're thinking, shit, you know, and I did think that, okay, fine, this could easily play to this, and now the move is kind of fulfilled, so it makes sense we would get our next correction over here if we are going to continue to the downside. Hey, it's one of them ones, but it's good to learn from these, and I've definitely asked the question to someone a little bit more experienced than myself to see what they think about it. So if I get some good advice on that, which I most probably will, be more than happy to share it, especially if I have to go back and kind of just study these. But I think I think this is pretty awesome trade. I mean, it played out pretty okay. Could have been better quality though, and I think that's high risk because it's still in that corrective still squeeze there. So that's one of the reasons I didn't want to take it. But hey, let's see. Daily's looking okay as well. I mean, it's still part of this big corrective part over here, so we'll have to wait and see. But I think creme de la creme, you know, we're seeing this right here, New Zealand yen. So hey guys, we're gonna catch you guys on Tuesday, hopefully latest Wednesday, but most probably Tuesday. So next video. Catch you guys in the next video.